Hello, welcome everyone. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am Anna, responsible for business development and a member of a great and powerful data visualization team at DataExpert. It is our pleasure to see how many people are interested in our work and join to this online session. Welcome again, everyone. Thanks for joining. The webinar will be recorded and will be available after the session. First of all, those who meet us the first time, let me introduce DataExpert first. Working with 80 colleagues, DataExpert is the largest independent operations support provider in Europe. We complete over 7,500 projects each year in the areas of survey programming and hosting, data processing, data visualization, graphic design, market research, technology transition support, custom development, and business intelligence. Today's session is the first episode in this year in our series. There will be 12 episodes this year, one in each month, in different topics showing different case studies with the aim of knowledge sharing. Let me introduce our today's speaker, Balázs, who is one of our data visualization experts with design specifications. So as the main focus, he creates beautiful and eye-catching designs from one day to another. Today's topic is Beyond Data Visualization. In this presentation, we will show you how to take advantage of your data to turn it into more meaningful and easier to understand information. The presentation will last 30 minutes. During the presentation, you can send us your questions, and after the presentation in the Q&A section, Balázs will give you the answers. If you are ready, then Balázs, the stage is yours.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Ancha, for this great introduction. Hello, everyone. It's great that you are attending in this webinar. I am Balázs from Hungary, and I am a graphic designer. I graduated as a graphic designer like almost 4 years ago, but I'm involved in design more than 10 years. And I'm a data visualization expert in DataExpert currently. And as a graphic designer, I would like to give you some data visualization tips today. Tips that hopefully make you see dashboards in a whole different way. Now, I will start with 3 simple questions. Question number 1 is, who do you see in this picture? Now, Ancha, if you could help me, who do you see in this picture?
Maybe it is Einstein?
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. This is, of course, Albert Einstein. Now, I would like the audience, if you could squint your eyes and blur your vision. Blur it as much as you can, but of course not too much. Now, who do you see now? Ancha, could you tell me who do you see now?
To tell the truth, I'm not very familiar with the famous members, but maybe it is Marilyn Monroe.
Exactly, and those of you who cannot really get the idea, if you are blurring your vision now with the smaller picture, you should see that this is actually converted into Marilyn Monroe. From Albert Einstein, we got Marilyn Monroe, and my third question is, how did this happen? We will find out. And I will also tell you how to use this knowledge to make the best designs possible. At first, we will go through the tricks of sight. Secondly, the rules of design, what we can learn from the tricks. And finally, the use in data visualization, how you can apply the rules. Now, let's consider part 1, the tricks. Okay, now another picture. I'm sure that most of you cannot really figure out what is it. It's difficult, right? But how about now? Now, surely you can tell now that this is a face. And finally, now, yes, it's a girl. There may be a few gentlemen among the audience who might want to get to know her better. Unfortunately, I don't have her number, but the whole point of this is that every time we look at something, this happens. To go from the blurred vision to the focused one, it takes about 10 to 15 milliseconds for eyes to do that. And it happens every single time. And there is nothing we can do about it. Now, in this example, our eyes sense the difference in the light and the dark regime. And then it saw the details. But light and dark are not the only way to see differences. There are other types of contrasts. One very good example here is the cold-warm contrast. Now, this is an actual photo. It is not photoshopped at all. This is real. This is how it was taken. On the right, we see the older light bulbs. And on the left, we see the new energy-saving lights. And they are both emitting the same white light. But when we put them together, it's a whole other story. Now, you could say which one you prefer. I personally prefer the right side because it gives a little bit more warmth, but maybe some of you who are in a warmer climate, you prefer the left one. But the summary for these points is that wherever our eyes see differences, our mind creates lines. Now, would that mean that lines are just a concept? Is it really? Is it an illusion? But if it's just an illusion, can they deceive us? Can lines deceive us? Let's see. Which horizontal line looks longer here? Top one or bottom one? How about these? Now, if you sense that top ones are longer, you shouldn't worry, you are in good company. We all do. But the reality is they are equal. In these next examples, check the horizontal lines. Which horizontal line looks longer also? Are they bend? They do bend. How about these? If you sense, maybe it's hard to believe your eyes, but I can assure you that all of these lines are straight. Now, the last one is my favorite. Here we drawn all the guidelines beforehand, all parallel, all perpendicular, so you see that I'm not cheating. Here's the shape. Now, Ancha, could you tell me, do you feel that this shape is balanced? Ancha tells me that maybe it is balanced. Yes, indeed, it is. But what happens when we add diagonal lines and the weight? Well, let's find out.
It can't be real.
Yes. Now, you see suddenly that this shape that was balanced before, suddenly it leans to the right. And why? Because we added lines to give the illusion of imbalance. Now, in relation to design, what can we learn from this example? The answer is the balance itself. So we need to take care with lines, but we also use them daily. The most basic tool to draw, to illustrate, to visualize. Here also, what would you see? What do you see? A slope, ramp, riverbed, canal, maybe valley. And how about now? It's a small change, and some of you may see angry eyes, but also a small change. And now it's just a ball game. Maybe one of the first computer games. Some of you are old enough to remember. Do you remember Pong? I think it was one of the first computer games in the world. And if you remember that some of you may be a caveman, or indeed cave woman in this case. But speaking of cavemen in the olden days did not understand the concept of lines at first. But here in this picture, for example, by chewing the color for berries and plants and transferring to their hands, they could create meaning, a lasting meaning that was there for centuries. But that lasting meaning was just the difference between the patches and shade. If you see the edge of the hands, it just shade. You don't see line, but you understand the concept of line. And it took some time for us humans to discover that lines can be used independently. And lines bring life. It is very easy to bring it to life. With lines, we can show splash, blast, ripple, and even motion. Is there movement here? No, of course not, but we perceive it. This is deception, and this is a trick. And all these examples deliver a clear meaning. Now, being clear is very important, of course. In the following examples, I will try to puzzle you, bamboozle you a little bit, but you may have seen these pictures before. Again, Ancha, could you help me? What do you see?
Mexican couple.
Yes, indeed. Or what else you can?
Or an old couple.
Yes, an old couple. Now, yeah, so we know they are Mexicans, not because they are wearing sombreros, but because they are drinking tequila, and that's why maybe they are happy. But how about this? Do you see an old lady or a young lady? Which one do you see?
I see a cat at the top.
You see the cat at the top. Okay, no, very good, very good. Or even this one. Is it a skull or a dating couple in a restaurant?
A dating couple is better for me.
Yes, exactly. Now, but why are these puzzling? These pictures are puzzling because how our eyes focus. We have different meaning with or without focused eyes. Just to prove it, squint your eyes again, blur your vision again. And the dating couple should disappear and you should only see the skull. See? Only the skull is meaningful. So, another thing with these tricks is that once you see it, you'll never unsee it. Now, your eyes right now trying to grasp some kind of meaning in this picture. And some of you may have already recognized there's a face in this picture. Those of you who didn't, let me show you. Now, there is the face. And from now on, you will never unsee it. Once your mind understands a concept in a sight, in a vision, from that point on, he will understand that. And here, I will show you a video. Now, focus on the cross. Don't look away from it. Keep your eyes on the cross, but notice the faces and pay attention to the faces. But, as I said, keep your eyes on the cross. And let's start. Now, do you see what happens? It's so strange. Have you ever seen such ugly celebrities? Maybe that's how they looked before their plastic surgery. Now, how is this happening? Well, the thing is that it's in the design. This video was made this way because, you see, the way we see is still sometimes a mystery. But after hundreds of years of trial and error, rules of design emerged. Bad practices died out, but the good ones lived on. Created by painters, typographers, graphic artists, and all based on the tricks of sight we just saw in this part one. And with that, we will move on part two, the design rules. Now, you may have heard this term, golden ratio. What is it exactly? This is a very common ratio found in nature. In the human face itself, hurricanes, or the Eiffel Tower. It may feel like I'm talking you back to school. The good news is that we partly finished with geometry. The bad news is that we are starting double algebra. Let's just say, do not fall too much into this, but after lots of deductive reasoning, we come up with this simple equation. It comes to human eyes very naturally, and it feels instinctive. And what is this about? It's all about that we have the whole part that is divided by divided into two sections, and the whole part and the large sections ratio is the same as the large part and the small parts ratio, and it feels very natural and instinctual. And this is all you need to know about the golden ratio. Now, double algebra is finished. Let's go back to geometry class. Among graphic designers and people who understand its power, the golden ratio is a very commonly used to create geometrical shapes and make beautiful geometrical grid systems. And for many of you here today, you will be interested in its effective use, like something in dashboard design as well. But as the Eiffel Tower proved, golden ratio is not a new concept. It was even used during the Renaissance to design books. Just an example here. I'm not going to more details, but in this crest on the top left, among the most important symbols in the Middle Ages, why is it important? Why is it important that we show a crest in the top left place in the second page in this picture? Well, it is important because it gives identity. And why the designer put it to the top left? Well, because we read from left to right. We also write left to right. It is embedded in our culture. What's on the left side of the page or screen comes first. Now, look at this layout. Which part do you think is the most important? Even though you will sense the big purple blocks first in the middle, the way you will process this page is from left to right, from top to bottom. And the red circle will be the first thing that the viewer understands. And what's usually there? Yes, you thought of it already. The logos, the identity is usually on the top left. And of course, since this is a grid system, everything is aligned with everything. And it is used in all types of media, for example, newspapers, web design, and so on. Now, let's move into a little bit of typography. What's wrong with this written word? Anja, can you tell me what's wrong with it? Do you see some kind of imbalance?
I don't know what is wrong with it, but it is not fancy.
It is not fancy. It's a very good way of saying it. Now, if I would ask to you, do you see the gap between each letter? Well, actually, there is no gap. These distances are all equal, whether you believe it or not. Now, what do we do to fix it? What do we do to make it feel balanced? First, we spread a little, you will see why. Then we adjust every letter ever so slightly. And now we have a nicely written word. Now, here you see both. What happened here? This is because our eyes sees patches and not lines. The top one is metrically balanced, and the bottom one is optically balanced. And we need the tricks of sight to create the illusion of balance. The set-in-stone structure for the layout makes perfect sense, but creativity is equally important to get solutions from this chaos. And when the two works hand in hand, we get the best results possible, as these books show. Now, okay, we already had a double math. This was a very short reading class, and finally let's do some design work. Let's create a circus poster, shall we? First, we have our paper. This is where we will create our circus poster. We will need margins. We add a large red rectangle to attract attention. Now let's put this white shape in the middle, according to the golden ratio, of course. This will be our text field. Now ribbons. We can't have circus without ribbons. Here's our ribbon. We added the main title. We cannot have a circus without a clown. Artists and animals, as in every circus. We put the most important text to the top, then the performers in the middle. Now, it's a pretty nice poster, right? Now, if you feel that something is wrong with it, then you feel it somehow right. But what's the problem? It looks strange, it looks crowded, right? But why? Well, because we need to consider the context. Now, let me give you a context here. Imagine a small town in the late 19th century. Life is gray, it's very mundane, everything happens day and day, over and over, same one as the next. Nothing really happens. But something really great happens. The circus comes to town, and at last something is happening. The circus posters are out. Everybody is looking forward to the big day, and it's a sellout. Every tickets are sold out. Everybody is at the circus. Everyone is happy. The posters did their job. But then, in the coming years, the walls get filled. Everyone advertises, and suddenly our precious little posters get lost in the crowd. And what do we do in this case? How can we attract attention? Well, the answer is quite easy. We keep it simple. We simplify. In design, less is more. And today, it's even more important in our digital world. Who is familiar with these, with all these pop-ups? And you have no idea where to look. In today's world, we need a better solution, such as this. Just the main point. And this progress is also backed up by the logo history of the largest companies in the world. Adidas and Nike. Nike started with a simple one, and it seems that they were right. Or Coca-Cola, with its iconic text, unchanged for a century. And of course, Apple, with its simple apple, has the same shape for 4 decades now. And although these logos are simple, they are also incredibly well designed, following the rules. Remember the golden ratio? This is how Apple used it. So, in fact, they really didn't think different. And the Nike tick, it's so simple, even you could design your own logo. Follow the golden ratio and just do it. And I know, I should know, because we did it. So we have covered the tricks of sight and the rules of design. But how can we use all of this knowledge in data visualization? Well, let's see. Firstly, I would like to ask some assistance from you, Anna, again. Let's test your data visualization skills. What type of charts are we looking at?
First one, I see a pie.
Very good. Second?
It is heat, or I don't know what.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I like donut very much.
Perfect.
Scale, for example, or
well, let's say it's
and
a
bar
chart.
column. Yeah.
And the last one, as you said, yes, it's a scale.
Yeah.
And why did I put a hand there? Well, because the first thing that we tried to measure something was with our thumbs and our arms. So what we learn here is that all chart types are based on visual reality. This means we can create our own as well. So with all this knowledge, let's create a dashboard. Now, firstly, as with everything, we have the raw data. Many of you are familiar with tables like this. If not, in a nutshell, each row is a respondent, a person we gathered data from. The column headers are the identifiers of the type of data. And right now, if anybody can tell any meaningful information from this table, then he is or she is a superhuman, because usually we can't. But how can we make it useful? Well, first we select, of course, which group of data we want to show and use. And let's initially put them to the left. Let's make a comparison page with a main brand and some competitors to compare it against. We add some top filters. This is just if we want to look at a certain group of people, we use these, age or gender or anything else. Now, the most important data for our main brand goes to the left. And why? That's there because that's where our eyes look first. Remember the reading direction. And of course, on the right, we add the variables which we want to compare our main brand against. We add the values for each brand. And finally, the difference from last year. Now, it looks quite informative, logical, clear, right? But something is missing. It's something that helps us form first impression. Because first impression is the single most important aspect of any design. And that missing ingredient is identity. So let's do this again, but this time let's do it properly. Let's be a good designer and consider identity. Let's use Michelin as our main brand, just as an example. Can we use their logo to help with the design, to create identity? Well, of course, not only can we, but we should, we must. First, we analyze it. Ratios, angles, colors, everything that we can know of this logo. And if we base everything upon it, everything will have the Michelin feel. Now, for us to create dashboards that you can look any way or form as possible you want, we usually use DataExpert for this. It gives a very, very large freedom, and as a consequence, it can give the best impact possible. So first, we put up a layout. A grid system based on this logo. The first section on the top will be the navigation, the second section will be the filters, and the third one is the data or slide section where we put our content. We, of course, add the margins, ratios, separations, and white spaces. And the picture or the background as well. You see, we still kept everything as before. Our main brand is on the left and the competitors are on the right. And we added this background picture so that it eases up a little bit. It's not as strict and it's a little bit lighter and easier and softer to look at. Now let's add the content for the slide. All sizes and places are based on the logo. We fill in slowly the details, and as a result, we get the same comparison page as earlier, but we, of course, can feel the difference. Now we have the layout, and just like the logo, we can use it with other projects. Because we spent so much time creating this beautiful layout, why not use it again? We just make different versions. For example, some variations, a black one, a red one, or even a metropolitan approach. So, overall, what did we cover? These three things, these three topics that we talked about, are we do to ensure we make the good first impression. Because first impressions last. We only get one chance and you have to get it right. This is how we do our designs at DataExpert. Now, I would like to thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them and Ancha will convey these to me.
Thank you very much, Balázs, for the great presentation. As you said, it is time for the Q&A section. Since we are a bit out of time, we will have time for 2 questions. But don't worry if we won't answer your questions. We will send the answers after the session via email. So, Balázs, the first question is, how often do you use these rules in your daily work?
Every single time, because the rules themselves are the same, but the approach is different. As many companies, brands, even styles we have, each single style or brand has their own rules, but those rules are set in stone. You have to imagine something like this. You have to build a building. No 2 buildings are the same. A little bit is different, but they are still applying the rules of gravity. It has to stand. And when I'm talking about these rules, it's the same thing. Basically, I'm using the rules of our eyes and how we understand things. And if they are very, what's the exact word? If they are very consistent, we did a very good job.
Okay.
Basically that.
Then the next question is, we see that you can create fancy and very eye-catching things, but how do you overcome with the limitations of the software that you are using?
Okay, so there are 2 main things to consider here. The first, do we want to overcome? And second, if we overcome, how do we do that? Because oftentimes, if you have a vision about a design, and if you design something that's nice and it is good and the best approach as possible, that will mean that that is the best solution or very close to a good solution. And then it is the software developers or the setup or the builder's task to figure out a way so that he or she can create that particular design. On the other hand, of course, there are places when our hands are forced. Now, in those cases, of course, we need to take account that what kind of software limitations we have. But that doesn't mean we don't have to do something great with them. So, yes, basically, it's a matter of balancing between the 2. If something can be done, but it's hard, I would prefer doing it the hard way. But if it's something impossible, I would use what I have. I would use the tool set to create the best design possible. Did that answer your question? Okay, great.
So this was the end of our first webinar session this year. Hope that everyone enjoyed all the minutes of it as I did. If you are motivated about getting to know more about this topic and have some idea of how it can be used in your everyday lives, we are happy to organize a call to discuss the details with you. And last but not least, let me tell you some words about our next session. It will be at the 27th of February. Our speaker, Richard Kovács, will talk about the sample uploader tool. See you next time. Have a nice day, everyone.